I am available to do it. Happy Monday. Welcome to the March 27th, 2023 meeting of the Rotary Club of Raleigh downtown. I'm your president, Tom Packer, this year. And it's great to see it's a great crowd here and on Zoom as well. So thanks everybody for joining us. We have a lot of honored and valued guests here today as well, we'll get to. But as we always do, we'll start off first with the invocation and the pledge, please. Tom, would you lead us in that way? Let's start.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you guys all for being here. If you bow your heads and we'll say our invocation. Heavenly Father, thank you for gathering us all here as a community with each other. Rotarians, as people who have a passion to make the world spin differently and to touch and influence the lives that other organizations and other communities don't get to. We ask that you keep our light bright, that you wouldn't dim our enthusiasms based on the results that are out there, but that we would all band together to create a better world, and that it wouldn't just be something that we say, but something we put into action and we do. We ask you for the brother and sisterhood of being here together today, for this fine food, for all the wonderful visitors that are here. We ask this in your name. Amen. Amen. If you please rise and
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. God bless America. To the oceans, why song God bless America. Sweet home. ARY. That's
if you would, first and foremost, I would like to welcome one of those people you guys here today, my wife, Leslie Packer. And you'll be hearing from him some remarks in a little bit, but we're also honored to have our district secretary, governor here today, Nathan Thomas. And Richard, welcome to over here. If you could introduce your guest about here today. Thanks.
Yeah, good afternoon, we're very glad to introduce my guest, Nick Robinson. We met last week at the Fair Business Expo. Going back to great group of folks and invited him. Here he is.
And Mark, I believe you have a lot of return guests.
Albert Daniel Stevens, I'm from the federal because I'm a minister and talking modern language. So I'm glad to have that one.
And so have a guest contacted us and said she'd be in town. Gonzalez from the historic Rotary Club of Chelsea, South Carolina. Would you like to stand up and kind of about it? Mari's live in Raleigh, then I think you've got a degree from two, and her John's taking her down to Charleston, but she's back here now and then, so sure to come and visit us. There was another fellow who looked vaguely familiar here. To remember, it was Charles. As almost everybody, although we do have new members in the past year. Charles was our president last year. and relocated to Oklahoma, and Charles, it's great to have you here. Just a couple words, everybody.
Well, good to be home. Although it's gonna be a quick trip, unfortunately. And I thank WRAL for bringing me out today. Well, it took us an extra hour and a half. But it's really good to see you all there. Joint Rotary in Tulsa. It's a little bit of a larger club. It's 250. I work on but this is long, so. Thanks.
Okay. A reminder, please don't forget that the red buckets on the middle of your table is for collecting money, loose change. If you don't have money to claim on the monopoly dollars amount to the bill. And money is collected over the year for the Dementia Alliance of North Carolina, one of our longtime corporate members. And it adds up over the year. By the end of the year, we give them several $100 at least. So every little bit helps. Julie, Charlie, I can impose upon you once again. We have happy dollars that raises pretty much for our foundation. Does anybody have any events? Probably not too many in the March Madness tournament. Teams are running to the final four. But any happy family events last week? Oh, yeah, come on. No, send it. Yes, send it.
It's going to be on Sunday. I am having pet photos with the Easter Bunny at my office. And so it'll be from 3 to 5, 3 to 4 kids are included too, and we're going to be stuck in the truck with supplies for the different animal shelters. So we'd like for y'all to bring your pets, and I will have a big bunny. Wow. So we got parties with 7-Eleven parties, so and got a Maryland Realty.com for the address.
So I'm on the advisory board at FAU and I was in Boca. I don't think I need to say anymore.
My wife is the least correct. We had a meeting to civil right, and then to following the second time, we had all of it. So I'm very happy that it was home. Very much degree. It's not good. I'm also going to thank the fellow that are hearing. Bill Warren and his wife Vicky, who came by our house to bring in and was a wonderful meeting. So I was ready to celebrate some things. Very well. Thank you.
Charlie, everybody. A reminder of upcoming meetings. Next week, we're having the young adults from the Rotary Club, Menzies State, come talk to us about what they've been doing. We'll get a see what our young leaders tomorrow look like, and they're going to be our featured speakers. Adam Davis is the president, and he's bringing some of his other colleagues from the club with him with Easter break on April 10th. Meeting. Then we have Neil Isaacs, referred to by Tommy and David Force, I believe, to talk about the business in today's coffee economy. And then again, I mentioned last week, we're having the head of the Blockbuster City. It's an interesting program, and she's going to talk to us about the cities we have around the world. I did want to, and I have to just once a week honor longtime members of the club. Lawrence hopefully is on Zoom today. He has been, I don't know if he's on today, but Lawrence Davis joined in July of 1982 and has been a member of dedicated, generous, supportive member of this club for 41 years. And we've been seeing him in person at the meetings until recently, but he has been zooming in, as they say. So, Lawrence, if you're on Zoom, congratulations, and thanks for sticking with the club.
Kim, you, honey.
Lawrence Davis is on here.
Hey,
Will you join the committee? Our committees are active, we're planning things, the service committee, we're Some of us were talking this morning, we learned more from Richard, so get involved in the club, that's the best way to do it. Let Linda know if you're interested in a committee, finance, public image, service, fundraising, whatever. And it's just a great way, especially for you younger new members, to really get involved and make a difference. Last week, well, 2 days ago on Saturday, Bill McCorn and I represented our club at the Boys and Girls Home in North Carolina, the annual Rotary Day. Nathan was there as well, a lot of leadership from the district was there, and they, I don't know, I'd say there probably 50 or 60 Rotarians there. And they took us on a tour, and if you look at the news on today, there's a little bit in it, but in 1966, they completed the Rotary Cottage, which was then the boys' home, it's now the Boys and Girls Home, where troubled youth can live. And it's a very moving story. These kids have experienced the worst of the worst, and they need help getting confidence back in themselves, trusting adults again. And this home has done wonders. And in particular, they've had some tragedies the past year. They lost their CEO in a house fire. They lost a couple of their service dogs even in that same fire. It was very sad. And we can see how they're rebuilding. They have a great CEO, a new dog that we met. And they raised almost $30,000 just for Rotary clubs and individuals bringing checks. And we support them every year. And this is maybe handing a check to one of their directors. But that's one thing that our foundation dollars that you donate to go to is put to very good use. And hopefully some of you will have a chance to go down to Lake Waccamaw. It's an interesting community. I'm there for the first time last year. They even went to their little museum afterwards, and it's really kind of a neat place. So I'm hoping more to go next year, but anyway, that's an event that happened last Saturday. It's a lot for the club and still will hopefully for a great deal of time into the future. And I thought that would be a good segue to again have Nathan Thomas, our district governor, District 7710, who we're very happy is there. He's been to, I know, a couple of service socials earlier on, and we met him during his Apex, the Zebulon walk and all that. Let's come up and say a couple of words to the club. Nathan, the microphone is yours. All right.
Good afternoon, Rotarians. It's good to be here. Just to take some time and catch up with my good friend Surrey. It was great seeing a lot of old friends here. It's special. Folks, join me in giving your club president Tom a big round of applause. He is having. It has been a special year, and if you remember July 1. Seems like a whole lifetime ago for me, but it was the start of this journey. And we were invited to imagine Rotary, what's possible with the collaboration between Rotarians, whether we're sitting together and sharing a meal, or folks across the district. And it's been a special year. Our membership is through the roof. We couldn't have ever imagined being in this position right here, but we're getting our zone, several other districts adjacent to ours, and membership growth, and looking around at this diverse group, I see a lot of young faces and diversity that needs more in Rotary. So thank you for being an inclusive group. We need more members, not so that we can have great stats for when Tom and I end our year, but for us to be able to go in our community and do more and more good work. And that's possible as we grow our ranks. From a foundation perspective, we're having a record-breaking year, lots of support, whether it was coming out and meeting me at Moore Square when I was walking from Apex to Zebulon, or supporting our multi-million-dollar journey. There's been incredible support from Rotarians around the district and in our foundation, and that provides us the resources to do important work in our communities. So thank you for doing that. I was reflecting 2 weekends ago. I was at Carolina's president-elect training with Carrie and Eric and hundreds of other incoming club and district leaders in our district and across North Carolina. And one of the speakers invited us to think of what is the 6-word story that would encompass the year that our incoming leaders will have ahead. And I cheated a little bit and thought, well, what was my story for this year? And I guess I summarized it to say, taking risks to advance our organization. And trying things a little bit different that we haven't done in the past, that maybe would make Rotary more accessible to a wider audience, to make sure that Rotary is fun in the post-COVID, post-pandemic world. And I remembered a year ago at president-elect training, waiting for Tom and the other president-elects to come into the room, feeling this sense of doubt. Would they like my ideas and plans, and would this be a shared vision that we could go into the new year? Excited to just get back in communities and get back and meeting in person. And 9 months later, it's evident that this has been fully embraced. It's been a special year for me personally, for my wife Rachel, and she's accompanied me on this journey, but to spend time with Rotarians across the district. So I have a couple more months in office, and I look forward to continuing to support Tom and our other presidents that are doing such a great job in this year. I'd like to invite all of you to join me on May 6th at our district conference in Chapel Hill. If you've been to a district event, you've seen this special aspect of Rotary, where Rotary is larger than this club. I'm meeting people from across the district and people with new ideas and opportunities to collaborate on service. So often with our events, they're the 3 T's, right? It's too far away, it's too expensive, and maybe it's too long, right? So I said, look, I'm gonna really listen to what I'm hearing from Rotarians as I meet up with them for coffee, as I spend time with them in the halls of their club meetings. And let's have a low-cost conference here in Raleigh. That'll be a single day event, but a day that we can really celebrate Rotary, celebrate what it means to be a Rotarian, and perhaps even connect at a level that we've not been able to do so far. I know that, let's say, Ned is a Paul Harris Fellow, and he works in mortgages, and he's married, and he has kids. But maybe there's aspects of Ned I don't know about, and to get into the deeper layers of communication, we'll start our conference with this really, we think will be a powerful opportunity for us to share stories and hear from different people in Rotary about things that are maybe not related to what we do with our occupation and different things that we typically talk about. So please join us Saturday, May 6th. We still have a couple more months of runway in front of us to imagine Rotary. So thank you for the hard work and efforts you're doing to support our community here in Raleigh. Again, thank you, Tom, for the great job you did this year. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Nathan. And you can register for the district conference on DAC fee, or if you have trouble navigating DAC fee, you can just let them know, and you can do it that way. Next is Tommy 2020. As you may notice, Tommy's been pounding the tables for money. He's number 21. Yeah.
Those of you that don't know me, I'm Tommy Gallagher here at the club. I'm in charge of the prayers and the gambling. Those. Yeah, we're doing an awesome new thing. If you haven't heard about this, the raffle is honestly just a tremendous opportunity for the club to be able to put money in our budget every year. This is a great thing. We can all participate in something that's fun. We can buy tickets each week, and then of course that money's going to go to the club, which is awesome. So what we're doing this week is really simple. It's just 50-50. You buy a ticket for $1, and the winner gets half the pot. Okay, it's super simple. In future weeks, the tickets are probably going to be a different price. We haven't quite nailed that down, but the tickets are probably going to be a different price. We're going to do a third to the winner, third to the club, and then the last third is going into something called the Joker pot. And it's an accumulating, building pot over weeks that gets bigger and bigger. And whoever wins that Joker pot at the end gets that big number. So every time you buy in with opportunities to potentially win the big bucks. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna have a deck of cards, and we won't do it this week, but in general, let's say Pete won, I bring the deck over, Pete pulls a card, he pulls a Joker, he wins, if he pulls anything else, then the money stays in the pot and builds for the next week. So that's kind of what we're doing. And like I said, it's just gonna be a tremendous opportunity for the club. If you haven't bought tickets today, I'd love to sell tickets to anybody that will buy one that hasn't already, but I'm gonna do that quietly. We have a meeting going on. Can I see a show of hands, maybe that hasn't bought, but would like to have a couple tickets? Not all at once. See, thank you guys.
And I think the odds are a little bit better than the bottom, so, feel free to get some of your dollars. Fundraising, Elsa Superman, I think, right, so you're gonna come up and say a couple words about what we got in fundraising. And then Randy Fraser, as soon as Elsa's done, please come up and talk a little about the all.
Hi, everybody. So we're gonna do this again, we're gonna have another ready, one thing, fundraiser. So please mark down, 11 Thursday, 5:30 at the City Hall. It's gonna be $80 a ticket, and it's gonna include some cold hors the display of cheeses for nice and corn. Ordered. Fruits, flatbreads, all kinds of cheese and crackers. And you're gonna have premium wines to taste, affordable wines, the Chardonnay, a Prosecco, a Pinot Grigio, and a Pinot Noir. I think it would be as much fun as the last one was, so we will get to be all in person. The sommelier will be there to help us and guide us and teach us about these 4 different wines. We will have a silent and live auction. Tommy, I'm sure we'll be doing 50-50 raffle like we did. We'll have spa-days, artwork, all kinds of things for you to bid on. And we're really looking forward to having a wonderful. So please, Linda, when are the tickets going to go off? Sorry. When are they going to throw off the invite? Next week or probably it's up whenever. Okay, so look for it. When I'll send out to you guys. And it'll probably be up within the next 10 days. We will be deciding. If you have any questions, call Linda, call Tom, call me, call anybody, and I'm sure we can be happy to put you there. So looking forward to it.
Thanks all. For those of you who haven't been on block cases before, they've been tremendous successes in this lot of fun. We paired wines, the past chocolates with Girl Scout cookies. And I'm sure they have a great plan for them too. So please look for the and support the club. Thank you.
Thank you, President Tom. We've been working, putting together documents for several years to support the Boys and Girls Home, which you heard about just a few minutes ago. The 17th annual Old Men and Women document teaming up for kids. It's coming up on Monday, June 5th. It'll be in the Greater Downs Country Club in Cary, so not really far away. And so far, I've gotten 5 members of our club that have given a little invitation to join and participate. Our teams are 4 per team, so if we're at 5, we need at least 3 more. For those of you skeptics that are sitting out there that have never played golf, think now I'm gonna tell you a little inside secret about golf. I was told many years ago. If you play golf consistently for at least 10 years, you have no worries about going to hell because you've done the time. So this is a super Rotary secret. So if we need at least 3 more folks to step up and let me know. It's important to club, and it really is very, very wonderful thing about the Boys and Girls Night. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Next, Richard, our service chair, if I can come up. And Richard, I apologize in advance for the next slide. I prepared it last minute and it's a little long. I'll have to explain it to them.
Good afternoon, Rotarians. So in April, we're gonna mix it up a little bit. We're gonna give you 3 options to participate in a service project. And generally, we have a service project when we ask somebody to attend. So we thought we'd mix it up a little bit. And they're kind of unique in they have a tie with the club, and that a couple of our members, including me, have a affiliation with the organization. First, April 16th, the Dementia Alliance NC Walk is Defeat Dementia. Defeat, get it, or a walk for dementia. It's going to be in Great Pleasure Park, April 16th from 1 to 4. And this is the 30th anniversary for this walk. And there'll be some volunteer opportunities for that. Heather Hooper, our executive director and fellow Rotarian, will send out, give you some information this week about what this volunteer opportunities look like. They'll be very similar to the opportunities we do, 3 or 4 hour intervals, but more on that as it comes. April 22nd, the following Saturday, is the American Cancer Society Relay for Life. That'll be downtown as well. That is again a celebration of cancer survivors and folks who caregivers and folks who were remembered. And that'll be at night from 5 to 9. And Ken Smith's colleague, Brian Schrader, will be MC for that event. And then finally, the Wake Smiles on April 29th, which we've been talking about all year, that's going to be 4 volunteers. So again, Linda will be sending out information this week. But again, it's April is kind of a Rotarian, the volunteer month, well, volunteer day, April 22nd. Well, we're going to go big and make it a whole lot of opportunities. So looking forward to this opportunities. There's going to be plenty. Just want to give a little footnote. Many remember Nicolette Bolton, who was in the club. Well, she recruited me to the club and she was in service care. Well, she's in Wilmington now. And, my footpath with the American Cancer Society is from Wilmington to Winston. Well, I had an opportunity in Wilmington for volunteer and I reached out to her. And we have an event called Shut Cancer in November. And she's going to be one of our shutters and she's on the executive committee. And I thought it was kind of cool, kind of came full circle there. So, but Nicolette told tell everybody hello, and she's doing very well. So, anyway, thank you for your service. We appreciate it. I'm doing great. Thank you.
And we will be returning to the stream that we have adopted. The city has so many groups, especially post-COVID, wanted to do stream cleanups this year that they ran out of streams. And so we'll do that again later. Do streets. Now we have a busy membership. And our membership chair, Eric Turner, will come up and lead us to that. Eric, thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for being here on this Monday. It's not raining right now. We have a lot to cover in membership. First thing I wanted to do though is to give everybody some statistics on our club, and to kind of echo what Nathan says. I'm not telling these statistics and say, yeah, we've gotten this many members this year. Look at our metrics and our numbers, but it's an impact of the fact of you guys are sharing your why with people that don't know anything about Rotary. And that's allowing us to have new members get engaged in what we're doing in our community, which is so beneficial to our community, because there's a lot of work that needs to be done. Richard keeps us busy, and so we need as many people as possible. But before this meeting today, we're going to be inducting 2 new members today, including them. We'll have a total of 17 new members for the year so far, which puts us in a net gain of 5 new members over last year. So thank you guys to everybody here. Thank you so much for. Next up, we're going to go ahead and do our second reading today for Sam Deese. Sam, did you come up? Thank you so much. As you've seen, Sam, he's been here. This, I think, is his 4th or 5th meeting. He's already made himself a part of the club, which is great. We have him today for a second reading. Once again, just as a reminder, Sam is originally from Pembroke, North Carolina, and currently serves as a trial court research attorney with the North Carolina Judicial Fellowship. He was also recently admitted to practice in the Eastern District of North Carolina Federal Court. Last week, we heard Sam talk a little bit about why he's excited about being Rotarian. So I thought this week we'd ask him a little bit of a different question. Sam, would you tell us something that might we find interesting about what you do, or maybe something that can help you on your day-to-day, how you That's what she.
Well, if anyone is looking for a lawyer.
Well, look, if you haven't had an opportunity to connect, please turn out the meeting, or hopefully you'll be there at the set, the service social this Thursday, and you can connect there. Sam, thank you so much, we look forward to inducting you next time you're here. And then next, we get the honor of inducting 2 new members today, so if I can have Chad and Chuck. Today we have the induction of Chad Daigle, who's sponsored by myself, and Chuck Underwood, who's sponsored by Mary Moss. Chad and Chuck's membership application has been reviewed and approved in accordance with their club's constitution and bylaws. And we will now proceed in admitting you both into membership of the Rotary Club of Raleigh, and the Fellowship of Rotary throughout the world. But we have a couple of questions for you first. Question number 1.
Question number 1. Will you join us as we strive to live a life of service above self?
Number 2.
Will you join us in our activities for service projects and fundraising activities to support our people?
And question number 3, will you join us in supporting Rotary's efforts worldwide to focus on these 7 areas? Promoting peace, disease prevention, providing clean water and sanitation, maternal and child health, basic education and literacy, economic and community development, and protecting the environment. Now, Rotarians, will you join me in fostering and supporting these new Rotarians as they join us in our pursuit of adding value to our communities through service to self? If so, they say, I will. Now, you're going to go ahead and those are the easy ones that they're just back. Fellow Rotarians, would you please join me in welcoming Chad and Chuck to the Rotary Club? Well, thank you guys. The last thing, just as a reminder, service social this Thursday at North Hills at Stir from 5:30 to 7:30. Last week I made the challenge to find someone who doesn't know about Rotary, tell them your why, and then bring them to the service social. And remember, please bring snacks that we're supporting local middle school. But I really do hope that we have a huge turnout this Thursday at Stir. Thank you guys.
Okay, thank you.
That was great, and you may have seen I handed our new members the history book that was written in 2014 for our centennial anniversary about the history of the club, and a little coin that I found in our service locker that has 4-way test on the back, so we can keep that handy. But welcome to the club. Next, by way of birthdays, I don't see Jennifer today, but Jennifer has a birthday. Jennifer Rodriguez, Ray Brewer, March 29th. And Kirk Warner, Kirk, I don't see either, but at the end of the month on March 31st. And happy anniversary to Scott and Kristen Stroud. Scott, I think I saw you over there, so congratulations. Whew, we got through all that. And with that, we can move on to our featured speaker today. We're very honored to have. We have, especially Leslie, has known Kent for some time through their work with the Special Olympics. And most, if not all of you, know Kent from being one of the key anchors at WRAL. Let me give you this formal introduction. Got from the WRAL biography. Well, good. Kent is a longtime popular news anchor for WRAL News. Ken was born on the island of Tortola in the British Virgin Islands and grew up in the island of St. Thomas. His career started in St. Thomas and it later took him to Columbus, Georgia, Savannah, Georgia, Portland, Oregon, Montgomery, Alabama, and then here to Raleigh to WRAL. Ken has a Bachelor of Arts in Mass Communications from the University of South Florida. Ken also volunteers and is the incoming president of the Board of Special Olympics in North Carolina, and is Wake County School volunteer as well. Ken's oldest son lives in Pittsburgh, and Ken and his wife, Amanda, are the proud parents of 3 children. I believe a 2-year-old, Franklin, and twin girls who I think are about 4 or 5 months. Again, has his hand full. Thank you so much. It's great to be here. With Tom, actually, we had a 20-month-old son and 4-month-old twins. So 3 kids on the team, it's a lot of work. But it's an absolute blessing for sure. It's wonderful to be here. And I have to tell you, when you first started out in the news business, you're not making any money. And I will tell you, I would check the Rotary guest speaker list every week to see who's speaking. And that will be my story idea for the week, for that day, because I knew I was going to do very well. So that was my answer to the protocol. 80 city where I wanted. I always check because I knew I was really well. Wonderful to see Leslie back. We served a number of years on the Special Olympics North Carolina board. It's great to be here. It really all started for me when I was born in the British Virgin Islands in Portola, and we did not know anything about television. So when I moved to the U.S. Virgin Islands, when my parents moved us to the U.S. Virgin Islands in the early 70s, at 6 years old, that was the very first time I'd actually seen the television. Because in British Virgin Islands, we just had radio. And interestingly enough, when we get ready from school in the mornings in Tortola, we listened to one thing on the radio every year. We were either late for school or we were early. That was radio. That's all we knew. So when we moved to the U.S. Virgin Islands in St. Thomas, we lived with this elderly lady who was very kind, very gracious lady. And I remember there was this box in the corner of the room. She was 80-something years old, so she regularly turned on the television. So I remember seeing this box in the corner of the room, and I thought, interesting video. And then one day I came home from school, and I was late coming home from school that day, and the television was on, and a newscaster. And I remember just being completely mesmerized. I remember standing in front of that little box and wondering, what are those people doing there? How did they get in? But I didn't know I was branded like the television news and broadcast news was all about. I didn't know anything about it. I just knew that kid was mesmerized at that very moment. So of course, I didn't do the yearbook club, and I didn't write for the school newspaper or any of that stuff, because again, I didn't know what broadcast news was all about. Until I had the opportunity to sit down with my guys, like the 11th grade or whatever. And she asked the question, well, what do you want to do with your life, young man? And I remembered that moment when I was a kid. And I said, I think I want to work in TV news. And she said the one thing that has made all the difference to me. She looked at me and said, you can do that. And I've never forgotten those words that continue to resonate with me. Because she said, you can do that. She could have easily said something else. She could have easily tried to persuade me and say, oh, you might want to think about going to be a teacher or a little bit. Those 3 words made all the difference. At the time, I didn't think I could do it, but each and every day,
It's part of what I do. It's part of how I live this job of being a journalist in this community. So, my career took me back home to the Virgin Islands after I graduated from college. And we all remember Hurricane Hugo. Many of you do. Well, Hurricane Hugo also hit the Virgin Islands very hard. And that knocked the television station right off the map where I was working. So I worked Hurricane Relief for about a year, and a year to the month that Hurricane Hugo hit the Virgin Islands, I got a call from Columbus, Georgia, to join that station. And she said, well, we don't have money to move you, but if you get here, the job is yours. So the job was mine, and I came to West Pittsburgh. So it took me from Columbus, Georgia to Savannah, Georgia. And then I thought, well, am I going to spend all my career in Georgia? I need to get out of here. So fortunately, a station in Portland, Oregon gave me a call. And they were starting a new news operation, a new station, a new program. It was a local version of sort of like a local news magazine, sort of like a local Dateline. And I thought, that would be interesting. So I went out to Portland, Oregon, stayed a couple of years. And how I ended up in Raleigh was, of course, after a couple of years working in Portland, that particular program got canceled because we weren't necessarily a news broadcast. We were a news magazine. So we aired, I think, at 7 o'clock in the evening. So we were up against some big guns like Entertainment Tonight and those types of programs. So we didn't survive that. So they said, we're going to cancel the show. So I needed to figure out, what am I going to do? Because at the time, my first son at that time was 8 years old, if I remember correctly. And I thought, man, I got to get back to the East Coast because I loved living in Oregon, but it was so far from my core family. Really far from my core family. Because it took me a whole day to fly from Oregon all the way to the Virgin Islands. So I thought, I got to get back to the East Coast. So a news director from Montgomery, Alabama gave me a call. I thought, Alabama? I don't know. So I said, thanks, but no thanks. So I kept sending out letters and putting out feelers, and she called a second time. This job is still available. And I thought, working in Portland, Oregon, a big city. Not going to Montgomery. How humbling it was though. And sending out letters and resumes and all that. And in broadcasting, you don't turn down a job once, much less 3 times. So after several months go by, I'm thinking, one, I gotta get a job, and I gotta do something. So I humbly picked up the phone, called that news director in Montgomery, Alabama. She picks up. I said, this is Ken Smith. I was wondering if that job is still available. And she says, it is. You're the one I always wanted. I said, well, I'm yours. Best opportunity that I have ever had in my career. It was such a turning point in my life to go to Montgomery, Alabama, because I started working for a station that helped me grow professionally. I grew up professionally in Montgomery, Alabama, and at the time, I was able to give my son an opportunity to walk the streets of history, because that's where the civil rights movement started. So being able to go to Montgomery, Alabama made all the difference in my career. And interestingly enough, when I was packing up to move to Raleigh, I found a couple of rejection letters from WRAL. But that just informed me that it wasn't my time then. I needed to go to Montgomery, Alabama in order to be here in Raleigh, North Carolina for the last 20+ years. That's been so successful for me. And this is where I met my wife, of course, 50 years ago. And now we have 3 kids under 2.
in a very disconnected certain thing. But it's interesting, just last week we celebrated 20 years of my being in Iraq, covering the invasion back then. And I was able to pull some of that old material that I covered, going through the streets of, first of all, the Kuwaiti desert, because we spent a lot of time in the Kuwaiti desert embedded with the North Carolina troops, National Guard, Fort Bragg soldiers. And then after a period of time being in the Kuwaiti desert, we actually convoyed from Kuwait all the way to Mosul. And that took us about 7 days to do that. And it was one of those experiences that you absolutely never forget. And when you're in that situation as a journalist, you're just as susceptible to danger as anybody else. And I remember one night, we were bedded down for the night, and the first sergeant came through and says, everybody got put your helmets on, got put your gear on, and got to safety. And that's what it really is, because up to that point, you're living this life of being this journalist telling these stories to these soldiers. And then that really, it came home to me that you're just as much in danger as any of these troops. And interestingly enough, when you look at the statistics, speaking of stats, being a journalist is actually the third most dangerous job in the country. Why? Because we are, when there's a scene happening, we're right there, we're trying to cover that scene as well. So anything can happen. I remember when we had some riots out here in Raleigh, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, 4 years ago. And I also covered some riots in Charlotte. And I remember a shooting happened, like I was standing right here, the chaos was going on, gunshots right there, tear gas, and the whole thing. So that's why, as journalists, it's the third most dangerous job in the United States, because you are right there. You know exactly what's happening, and you are in harm's way. But the important thing is, you're there to tell the story. You're there to do your job. You're there to tell at voice the voiceless and let people know exactly what's going on. Nowadays, journalism is under attack. We know that. There's a disconnect between what people are hearing in the news, what they're experiencing. And I think the important thing for us is to recognize that in local news, in local TV news, we're giving you the facts. We're telling you the truth. Because this is our community. We're living here. And in that regard, that's why it's so incumbent on us to always be accurate and always be truthful in local news. Network news, they have a different model, so to speak. And whatever you aspire to, and I use that very loosely, they have their own agenda, their own mission. But I'm here to tell you, in local news, when you turn on the local news, whether it's WRAL or across the street or down the hall, when it's local news, you're getting news from people who live in your community. So it's incumbent on us to make sure that we're telling you the truth. Absolutely telling you the truth. So when you see a local news broadcast, it's really about you, because that's our mission, is to tell you what you need to know, what you want to know, what's happening in your community. That's what we do. And so getting back to the 20th anniversary of covering the war in Iraq, I remember one night, at the time we were CBS affiliate, and Dan Rather would hold court every night. Who remembers Dan Rather? Yeah. I do remember, and it was such an intriguing experience for me because I was a young journalist at the time as well. I'm still a young journalist.
And I was new to my career, run to the and doing it for about 10 years at that point. And I remember when he walked into the room, because we're all set up in this hotel compound in Kuwait City. And we'd all go to the desert and work and come back. And every now and then, Dan and I were coming from the field. And this time, this was the first time I had an opportunity to be there when he got there. And I remember the reverence that just took over that whole group when he walked in. And I thought, oh, so this is Dan Rather. But he was holding court, meaning that, you know, he was telling stories and all gathered around were listening. And he was talking about just how this business can consume you if you're not careful. Because if you remember Dan Rather, he got his start when he was, I think it was coming some major hurricane, and he wrapped himself around this pole and he was being falling in the wind all 9 yards. So he was telling that story, telling some other stories. And he said, you know, if you're not careful, this business will consume you. And I remember him telling us, one day he came home from work, and one of his kids and their friends were in the den, or somewhere they were. And he walked in, and one of his little friends said, well, who's that? And his son said, that's just Dan Rather. And I thought, I've never forgotten that story. And as a dad today, I am very proud to be here as Franklin and Maurice's dad, sharing stories about Ken Smith you see on TV in the mornings. And I thought to myself, I never want to be that person. That my son says, oh, that's just Ken Smith. I always want to be dad. And that's what makes me the most proud today. Because I'm a father of 3 little ones. Because when they read about the Iraq invasion, Saddam Hussein, the whole 9 yards, I would say they're history books, but I gotta say on their digital devices. When they read about that on their digital devices in a few years, I'm able to show them where Dad worked when this history was being made. So that's why I tell people I have the best job in the world, because I get to be in the front lines of what's happening, not just here at home, but all around the world. Each and every day, I walk into that newsroom, I'm that 7-year-old kid who was mesmerized by TV news, and I get to do it for a living, and I get to take care of my family, and I get to do this. I get to meet people in my community, and I'm so forever grateful for the invitation. Tom, thank you so much. And I want to use some time for questions if you have them. Happy to answer some questions.
Sure. Well, thank you, Ken. Does anybody have any questions about the TV news business or in particular about Eric?
I'm curious if you could give us a very short summary of the process for when you have meetings before you go on the air. What stories you're going to hear.
So each and every day, we have several meetings, and it starts with our first editorial meeting in the morning. And that's where we bring all our story ideas to the table, whether it's our contacts that we have, or we've gotten an email from a viewer concerned about something in his or her neighborhood, whether we've gotten a press release from the governor's office. We bring all that material together, and then we decide, well, what stories are impacting the community most? If something is happening in one particular neighborhood, how does that impact the big picture? So we're constantly looking at stories that impact big picture, because if you're sitting at home, you're asking yourself, how is this story impacting me? Then you're thinking, what if that were in my neighborhood? What if that would happen here? How would I react? So those are the questions we're constantly asking ourselves. We're constantly asking ourselves, are we putting too many sirens on the air? We're constantly monitoring level of mugshots that we put on the air. We're constantly monitoring, the level of violence that we're showing, constantly, because, let's face it, you're having breakfast. There's certain things you just don't want to be bothered with and listening to. So we're constantly having those conversations in the morning, those editorial meetings in terms of what we're going to show, the impact those stories are going to have, and how we're going to cover those stories. And these are things that happen throughout the day, constantly before we even go on the air. And each story goes through the editorial process. 3 sets of eyes look at a story before it actually hits the airwaves. So that's important. So when I write a story, my photographer looks at it, my news manager looks at it, my assistant news director looks at it. So it's vetted before it goes to the air. Now, we sometimes make mistakes, yeah, we're human, and sometimes we make mistakes. Very rarely does that happen. But everything is vetted before we go on the air. We're constantly having those conversations. And I got to tell you one thing about broadcast news: it's not going away. And admittedly, not as many people are watching broadcast news as they used to, because, oh, listen, what are you doing to wake up in the morning? You grab your phone. So in that regard, we have to make sure that we are relevant. We have to continue to be relevant, because you can easily get news from your phone. Because WRAL.com is one of the most popular websites in the nation. So you can get news from WRAL.com. But research shows the reason people watch news, it's not because of the content. Believe it or not, you watch the news because people like me. You watch the news because that kind of slick guy. Oh, much. Get your content anyway, and that's why it's so important for us at WRAL to see longevity, institutional knowledge. You can't replace that. And so that's why you see the journalists, the Morgans, the Ken Smuggers, the core group of journalists you know and love over the years are still there. And of course, we invite new young journalists into the fold, because then you get to know them and they take over the mantle eventually when we move to the side as David Crabtree recently retired, and then to go PBS North Carolina. But broadcast news is going away, but we as journalists and broadcast journalists have to remain relevant. And that's why every story that we do has to be about our community, has to be about you, has to be about impacts you, what you care about. And we're constantly doing research to find out what do you care about, what do you want to know. And that's the answers that the questions we're asking every morning before we go on the air. What is our research showing? What do people want to know? What do they care about? And that's how we decide what we cover. I saw one hand over here.
So your prompt is to change from turning the TV on and the anchor to sitting behind the desk. And now you're standing there for half an hour.
Yeah, it's just a mindset. Our current management believes that it raises the energy level if we're standing and we're moving around. And truth be told, it's healthier for us really to stand. Every now and then we have an opportunity to sit, which is fine. But in terms of the new model, in terms of delivering the news, it's you stand, it gets blood flowing, it raises the energy level. Sometimes those moments, but we do appreciate having an opportunity to say it, because it gets my sense in each dinner.
It's time for one more question, sir. Yes, have you written a book or pamphlet about some of your experiences?
I've honestly been thinking about that. And particularly in the last week when I started looking at all that old material from Iraq, from Kuwait City, from being in Germany, from having the opportunity to travel the world, working in a local station. And that's the beauty about working for a locally owned and operated station. We're locally operated, we operate globally. So when there's a story happening in London or overseas, we don't rely on the inputs. We actually send one of our crews. So that's been a plus for me. Well, a lot of my friends have been to the network and have traveled around the world. I've been able to stay local and do the same thing. So that's been a real blessing. But yes, thank you for encouraging me to do that, because there's some experiences I'd like to share.
Okay, we have.
Thank you so much.
Token of appreciation, a Rotary Club of Raleigh, with our 408 test on the back. And I think we'd like to see you freaking just standing up. We're in the second. Good, well, thank you, everyone.
This is an honor of all those who provided me.
The 408 test, Tommy, we need to do the round.
Thank you. We bought tickets. I hope you're excited about your opportunity to win today. And what's that? Yeah, you are gonna have to read your number. That's it. And we're gonna have our esteemed past president, Charles there today. Charles, if you don't mind, want to read your higher, dig, mix it around, get something out of there. You're not out of it. That's all right. Okay, here we are.
So 4 digits, 1643.
1643.
Okay.
One of you, I promise. 1643. So Mario bought a good many tickets and has cut out. So I can only imagine the one guy that's not in the room has not an apple. The shooting has the right ticket, and will win $70 today from the raffle.
Thank you to Tiffany, all right, for stepping in and giving my babies. And would you all please stand and we'll do the 4-way test. Of the things we think, say and do, is it fair to all concerned? All concerned. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
And thank you. This is Sandra Davis. Thanking you, Lawrence, and I've enjoyed being on Rotary with y'all and appreciate Zoom so much. Thank you. Thank y'all for letting Lawrence and me here. We love being on Zoom. Okay, they're muted then, I think. So